Welcome to your next step up the self-publishing mountain.
I'm Matilda Swift, author of quintessentially British cozy mysteries.
And I'm Samantha Cummings, author of young adult books about magic, myths and monsters.
I've written the books,
Changed their covers,
tweaked their blurbs,
tried tools from a dozen ads courses.
and I'm still not seeing success.
Now, we're working together to plot and plan our way from barely making ends meet to pulling in a living wage.
Join us on our journey where we'll be mastering the pen to snag that paycheck.
Hello, and welcome to Pen to Paycheck Authors Podcast. I'm Sam Cummings, here with my co-host Matilda Swift, and we're here to write our way to financial success. We're two indie authors with over a dozen books between us and still a long way to go towards the quit the day job dream. If that sounds familiar, listen along for our Mastery Through Missteps journey. Each week we cover a topic to help along the way. This week's topic is going to be pen names versus personas. But before that, let's do our wins and whinges of the week. What is your win or whinge? You can start.
Okay, I've actually got two wins this week. So,
Yay!
yeah, I think I never do whinges. I need to start being more whingy. Yeah. My first win is I'm just feeling really smug because something that I've been working on. I mean, I've been working on it for like several months right now, like trying to get my life kind of more in order. And I feel like it's working, which feels really good. So I have just been like, one thing I really want to do is just get better habits and routines.
Mm-hmm.
I used to be quite good at it. I used to, when I lived in Hong Kong, I had a very, life there is very easy, like public transport, simple. I didn't live near any of my family, so I had, very few obligations. I lived within walking distance of my work. Food's there very easy. Like, there's restaurants everywhere. You can be pretty disorganized and still kind of quite easily get things done. I even had a laundry service in my building. No one has washing machine, so it'd just be like a very cushy life. Yeah, it was lovely.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came back here during the pandemic, and obviously everything absolutely upheaval. Like everything was all over the place. And then I moved, and then I moved again, and I'd finally got things kind of back in some sort of semblance of order. And I was able to write before work, and I had, bills paid, milk in the fridge, things like that. But it really felt like I was just like constantly like one broken or lost thing away from disaster. Like it constantly felt like I was just working really hard to stay on top of things. And I was like, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel like how I used to feel. And obviously I've changed my life quite a lot, but I really wanted to figure out a way to kind of get things back in order. So I've been working really hard on some mindset things and also just on getting back into good habits. And I just have felt very drained recently with everything feeling like I was having to deliberately do lots of things. So like decide what to have for breakfast every day, find, the right time to do this thing, remember to put the recycling out, and everything felt incredibly conscious. And I was just feeling really drained. And in a way that sounds really stupid to complain about, like as in it all sounds really trivial and it just felt bigger than it really was. Like I'm aware it's very trivial things, and I don't have any kids and I live by myself. So it was all easy things just feeling bigger than it should have felt. So I really wanted to get to a stage where I could get it to feel small again. And I really like having all those kind of responsibility things feeling very small. That's how I want my life to be. That's why I don't have a partner and kids. So I've been working really hard and just like trying to get myself back into a place where I feel back in control about that. I bought myself, because I am so super cool, I bought myself a chore chart for my fridge. And then I bought myself a little whiteboard for my fridge because that went so well. And I've listed all the meals I've got on my fridge, so I didn't even have to think. I didn't have to open my fridge, open my freezer, open my cupboards, nothing. I just look at the list and I'm like, okay, I'll pick something from there and I will eat it up. And I've been like batch cooking. Yeah. Today at lunchtime, I did almost my entire week worth of chores. They were all spread out on the chart, but I was just like, oh, each of these took like 2 minutes each. What have I been doing putting these off for so long? So that is my win number one, that I just feel like light and airy and back in control of things. Not everything, but I'm just working on getting things back bit by bit, which feels really good. Definitely part of it that helps is that the weather here is lovely and sunny and warm today. It felt like the first day when winter is like heading away.
Yeah, so see you later, winter.
Yeah, it felt amazing. I took the bin out today. I was like, oh, the warm sun on me. It was a lot easier to take the bin out in that than like icy sleet and a chilly wind. So that is win number one. Win number two is yesterday we had our monthly meeting. Absolute winner. So usually we meet once a month on a Sunday and then we record the podcast straight afterwards. But I've got lots of family things going on at the moment because my brother's wedding is coming up. So we couldn't do that, so we're recording tonight. But it's actually been even nicer to have a little bit of time to reflect on all the things we talked about and just still be basking in the glow of that. We had a great day where we planned the podcast, but we also spent a good couple of hours very selfishly working on my new book and like the concept for it. And I went into it thinking, I've just finished 2 weeks work on this. I finished the first, in fact, got 8,000 words. I tried to do about the first 10. I got 8,000 words. I've got the first, like, the murder's done, the inciting incident's done, the call to action is sorted. It's like, I feel really comfortable, really confident in this book. And then by the end of it, I was like, I need to rewrite everything in like a great way, though, in a way that's just like, I 100% think I had got a book that felt very good and I wanted to feel excellent. And I think I know now how to make it excellent, which feels really exciting. And it feels, and I think the two things tied together, those two wins of like feeling in control of my life gives me space to feel like I can be more creative and adventurous and upend things in my writing more rather than constantly have to play it safe. So it just feels like I'm winning at the moment, which feels really good.
Yeah, that's amazing.
About you? How's it?
I am kind of keeping on top of things. I feel the same way. Like it's all of a sudden it feels like all of the simplest tasks in the world take the most effort. So I am not yet at the point where everything is right, but over the next 2 weekends I plan on like clearing everything out and doing like a big clean and then one day I'll be able to talk about that as a win. Right now that's probably my whinge. My whinge is that I haven't cleaned and I'm a terrible person, but I'm also just a real person who does not have time. So that'll be my whinge. Go on.
I was going to say, I mean, that is definitely how it has felt, and it's just made me feel like a bad person for not being able to like keep on top of chores, and knowing that they are not big chores. Like I don't make that much mess. I'm one person. How much mess can I possibly make? But it was just like you would see. I kept seeing bits of mess everywhere and bits of untidiness, uncleanness everywhere. And I was like, I'll get to that later because I don't have half an hour to spend on it. Yesterday, as I was out walking out the door to meet you, I realised I've got 5 minutes before my train was due, before I had to go and leave for the train. It's like, you know what? On my list of things to do today is clean the stairs. I just started cleaning the stairs and I didn't finish it. I got everywhere except for the bottom 2 steps. But in 5 minutes, I did most of that chore that I had been looking at for weeks, thinking, we need to scrub those stairs. Can we go scrub?
I am a huge advocate for writing a list, not just having it in the back of your mind, writing a list and putting it on your fridge. Like that's the place where I go to the fridge.
I love it.
I go to the fridge all the time, and I've got a whiteboard on my fridge, and everything gets written on there, and that's how I know what to do. It does take me a while to get to them, but I eventually do get to them, and it's great, and I feel great. I was just gonna say my win isn't as exciting, although I guess like cleaning isn't that exciting, but chore chart. I haven't done that. I was going to do 2 wins. My first win is Manchester and yesterday, because I felt like it was it was really nice just to not focus on my work, to look at somebody else's work. That was really nice. But I also just really enjoyed being in Manchester. I said this to you yesterday that I've never really walked around Manchester on my own before because I just go with other people. And
which, just to clarify, is your nearest big city that you've grown up near your whole life.
It is, yes. And I just always go with other people and I just follow them around. That's how I get by in life. I just follow other people. And I've started walking around Manchester to meet up with you and taking different routes every single time. And yesterday was the first time I just randomly walked around and found where we meet up without looking at my map to check where I was going. And I was like, nailed it. Feel great. Look at me. I am Carrie in Sex and the City and I'm just strutting around Manchester.
It's got the Arctic, just like, where can I not go? Or navigator.
Yeah. Feels great. And I also, for my second win, I started doing the illustrations for the book that I've got coming out at the end of this month. If I make that deadline, I might have to push it to April. But every chapter has an illustration at the start, and I've drawn them all. Wow. And just need to ink them and scan them. So I feel good. I'm like, I'm getting there.
Is the deadline pushing on this because you are making these headers?
No, it's just because I didn't contact my formatter person and she's like, I like her to do all my formatting because she just like is really good at consistency, where consistency is where I fall down personally in all aspects of my life. And so she was like, yeah, I'll squeeze it in because it's just a small book. But I kind of should have emailed her like 2 weeks before I did. So we'll see what happens.
That is definitely on my list of things I want to make into a process this year, is like all the deadlines for contact your cover designer here, contact your editor here. Because again, that's constantly like I'm always thinking about, like, do I need to do that? When do I need to do that?
I was going to get up and grab it, but I'll probably knock the microphone, so I won't. I've got on my pin board in front of me, which I was just looking at before we started this, I have drawn out a chart of when to do certain things. And the only thing that it doesn't have in there are things like beta readers and ARC, like sending out ARCs. But everything else, I've got cover design, typesetting, proofreading, upload something, I can't read it from here. Uploading to Amazon, marketing and publication are all like on this chart. So I've got that whole process. I know when I need to start for my next book.
Send me a picture. I want to make
I'll have to send you a picture.
Sheet with like, you can put in the first date and it'll tell you all the rest of the dates.
I do need to do that. I have basically done it for my book that's coming out towards the end of the year. So this is like for that one specifically, but then I plan on like automating it. So I'll send you a picture. It feels scary looking at it.
Yeah, that's why I want to put it away in a spreadsheet somewhere that I'm not going to look at it all the time. But maybe it'll go in the fridge. Maybe it'll go in the fridge with the chore charts.
Put it on the fridge.
Yeah, because my fridge also includes, when I have people come stay with me for writing retreats, which I have had various different friends come and do, I get a giant piece of brown like wrapping paper, and we write up like a physical timetable of what we're going to do in all the days. So like visits to Haworth, where the Brontes live, and visit up to, I also live near Sylvia Plath's grave, up in Hepton Salt above me. So we'll put in those, and we'll put in writing time, different places, also important writing chats, and they stay on my fridge, and I'm just stacking them all up. And one day I will have a big thick wedge of all of them just to commemorate all the retreats I've been on, which is all I've hosted.
That's really nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got a very winning week this week then. But on to a topic that neither of us had to do any research for it, and we did a little bit of talking about it yesterday, and I still don't really know what we're going to talk about. So let's see. So this week's topic is pen names versus personas. What did you consider when exploring this?
So for me, this is a completely personal topic rather than like something that I put a load of research into, because my pen name, which is Frances June, and the persona that goes along with that, well, I didn't really do a persona that goes along with that, but my pen name was very much created because I was too scared to tell people I was writing books. And so I created this, like, I guess you could say, a type of persona when I first started self-publishing, but didn't really carry on with it. So I kept the pen name, but I didn't create a persona to go along with it. I just started telling people that was my pen name. So from my point of view, I feel like I understand why other people do pen names and maybe come up with personas to go along with them. And we'll talk about some people who famously do it very well. But I am like the worst example of all of that. So, like,
well, I think you're a good example of like, it's interesting to think about what did you choose to do and what didn't you choose to do and why, and then what would you maybe have done differently. Because I think what's interesting about your pen name is I think you've got the lightest use of a pen name of anyone that I know. So like you have one name on the books, but that is the only place you use that name. Like you have your newsletter comes from your name, your social media's in your name. And as we talked about a bit before, lots of your online presence is related to kind of your author to author conversations. So even your like social media handle it feels more sort of authory rather than, or author to author than necessarily your writing name.
Yes.
So when you made a pen name, did you originally think, oh, I'll set up a newsletter in that name and I'll set up social in that name? Did you do anything or think about anything in that?
No, I didn't. I mean, at the time when I first started writing and publishing under a pen name, I had my own separate life online as me, and I used to do blogging, and I had a blog, and that was all under my name. So that's kind of, I think, probably why I also kept them separate. So there was twofold, is that I already existed online as me. I was scared that people were going to know that I was writing books, and I felt like that was a dumb thing to do because I didn't think people thought I was capable of it. And I, in the back of my mind, also thought, if I'm going to write books, I really want to get an agent. And if I get an agent, I want to publish under my real name. So there were all these different aspects. And I think I just hadn't really planned on writing and indie publishing as a career. I think if I started now, knowing what I know with the ambitions that I have now to do this as a full-time job, I would just start with my own name. I would just go at it like wholeheartedly as me, like no persona, no pen name, just the whole, like just jumping with both feet. I don't want to say like I feel like I've tarnished the work that I've already put out. I do think it is confusing to people, but I don't think the damage that I've done is irreparable. I think that I'm at a stage where, because I'm going to be, and this will be like moving on to next week's topic, I am going to be rebranding and changing my publishing name. So I don't think I think if I do that, I think that would make more sense to people, and I do think that people will be like, oh yeah, that makes more sense. Good for you.
If you said if you're going to go back, you'll do it under your own name. If you're going to go back and you really could think about absolutely anything, you still want to keep that option open to maybe publish one day under your own name in a whole different thing. What would you have done differently in terms of setting up your pen name? If you knew you were going to keep it and you were embracing it for positive reasons.
If I was going to go under my name, my actual name,
under your pen name, to say you were going to have a pen name from the beginning,
I would have. Do
you think there's a way to? Maybe the question is like, do you feel like there is a way to be open about having a pen name from the beginning, or do you feel like you have to be committed to it?
I think so. I think that if I was going to do it under a pen name and happily publish under a pen name for the rest of my life, I would have put everything under the pen name. I would have used it as part of my branding. My website would have been my pen name. My socials would be my pen name. I would talk to people as that person. And yeah, I think I would have, at that point, adopted a persona for that business, because that's effectively what it is. I would be creating my own character for the business that I would have created. So I think it does work. Just not for me. It was just a mistake. But that's okay.
Were you at all influenced by? Yeah. Were you at all influenced by the commonness of pen names in your genre? Is that a consideration?
No, I don't really care what other people are doing. I don't know, and honestly, I don't know in my genre how many people use pen names. I'm not sure. I haven't really looked at that. I think that there are. Sometimes there's like a lot of stuff that you could look into. You know, like there's a lot of stats you can look at. There's a lot of research that you can do, but I don't know how relevant it always is. And for me, it didn't feel relevant to really think about that. Because I'm such like myself online as it is, like my social media and stuff is so much me. There's like, there's no point me being somebody else.
Yeah, and I guess I think your sort of fantasy genre, in that sort of overall genre, a lot of people are just using initials. So maybe more than pen names, people are just choosing a form of their name.
Yes.
Whereas I write in Cozy Mysteries, and it is very clear that unless there's like a whole town full of people who have incredibly cutesy names that I've not met, a lot of people in Cozy Mysteries are using pen names. I think partly it's that a lot of people who write Cozy Mysteries, they tend to write, many people write similar genres. They'll write multiple, they'll have multiple pen names. Cozy Mysteries are quite short as well, so many people will publish cozies and women's fictional and rom-coms, and like they'll have several different pen names going on to separate their genres. And also I think not anybody, it's becoming less common, but in the past, definitely anybody who was a man would write under a pen name or initials. There's now a couple of quite public male names. So cozy mysteries, yeah, people have incredibly unrealistically cutesy names.
Yes.
And I write under a pen name, even though actually my real name is, you would think it's a cozy mystery author name, and there are in fact a number of cozy writers who have the same first name. But growing up, it was a very distinctive name, and I felt a bit conscious of using my own very distinctive name as a writing name. And definitely part of it was that I didn't necessarily want to use up that name. A bit like you were saying, like you only get one chance to use your own name. And I thought, what if I publish a bunch of books and they're rubbish and I want to start again? I would like the chance to start again with my real name. And you kind of always go backwards. But yeah, I think a big part of it is that it is quite distinctive, and it didn't necessarily feel very comfortable to be that open, especially when cozy writers are quite often using pen names. And the person that I think is and I thought about today whether to say it or not. So obviously it's not very open. I don't think, like, everyone who's a writer that I know knows that I have a name and a pen name. I'm very open about that, but I think nothing in like my writing, in my author life is open. And it feels a bit like a lie to be like presenting yourself as one name, to have people call you to your face one name that you know isn't your name. But also I like that it gives you a persona. That it says like, this is the writer me. And the person that I was thinking about when I was thinking about whether to be open about it or how much to use it was Sasha Black, who has the Rebel Author podcast. Her name is a pen name, and she also has an unbelievably distinctive real name, like much more than mine. You know, it's you'll have never met anyone with this name in your life, whereas mine you might have. So I think it feels like a nice protection in terms of like keeping something that is a bit too personal private. And also I like that you get to have a separate persona as your pen name. It makes you maybe make a little bit more of a consideration and decide what belongs in and what belongs out of that. Because I have, all my separate social media was already separated under my original name. That's a social media where maybe I've had it since I was a teenager, and it's got things on that I wouldn't necessarily consider to be connected to my author self anymore. So it was kind of nice to have a fresh start, and be really focused on sort of brand specific things. So I really like having a pen name. I think in my genre it suits having a pen name, but I think the interesting thing is that kind of going backwards and forwards over it. So whether you go into a pen name, whether you come out of a pen name, I think that's maybe the thing that feels appropriate to talk about on this podcast, because it is something you might decide to change after several books. So for example, if I were going to write urban fantasy now, I would probably have I would have a pen name, really. Because I don't write paranormal cozies, which are kind of the adjacent genre. Urban fantasy is a bit grittier, and I would expect my readers not to like it, so I would add in a new pen name and go through the process of that. But I think the less common thing to do is come back from a pen name. Though I was in the Cozy Mystery Clubhouse group today where we were talking about another cozy author in there who is, for a long time, she lives sort of near me, for a long time was writing under a pen name that sounds like a pen name and is going back into her real name. And I think part of it, I don't know if this is true, I meant to ask her today, but she wasn't there to talk to. I think part of it is other people have started using similar names as a way to like piggyback on her brand, is what I think might be part of it. Because she's got, a very good brand. But she's going back and she's doing it by putting real name writing as pen name on her covers. So that's a good example of someone who's moving. It's given her a chance to rebrand all of her covers. It's given her a chance to put out some, newsletters, promotions, comms about it. So there's a kind of positive to it. Do you think there's any other positives to going out of a pen name?
I mean, like you say, I think it's completely dependent on like how authentic you feel or not authentic at all. Like you say, if you felt like you're kind of lying, which I don't think you are. I think it's just like you say, it is a persona. Particular genres I think work better with personas, especially I'm going to use romance. We always use romance as an example, but romance authors,
because they're the
use
geniuses.
pen names. Yeah, and they have these personas online, which I'm sure that they're not 100% like in real life, because everything's cranked up to 11, and they have to sell. They don't have to sell. They are selling like brilliantly. And
I mean, that's a good
and
thing
playing that
actually
character.
to highlight that, like, it does allow you to crank things up to 11. So I am not as cozy in real life as I am when I'm Matilda Swift.
I don't know. I think you're cozy.
Yeah, I think I've got more facets to my personality. So that I think I wouldn't say fit in the cozy branding. So things that I wouldn't post about my social media, that if it were my real personal social media, maybe I would, and it would sort of dilute the branding. Whereas focusing on saying, like, this pen name just has this job, like, she does nothing aside from write cozy mysteries. She never goes on dates. She never worries about the gas bill. She never has to call the roofer because the roof's got a leak in it because she, bought an old house and has to complain about that. Like, she never has a bad day. There isn't some sort of like cute and cozy version of it.
Yeah, I think that's actually a real benefit if you are adopting a pen name and a persona, is that it really makes you narrow down what you're posting online. And in a way, you can't complain about real life stuff because it's not your real life social media. And I see a lot of people who don't use pen names, and the things that they post, I think it like, when you're not posting under a pen name, so this is like a negative for posting under your real name, is the line is completely blurred between who you are and like your real life and your presentation to the world. And I do see people falling over that line and sharing too much. It's not sharing too much. People can share whatever they want, and a lot of people love the fact that the people that they follow are more authentic and show bad days and real life stuff and how messy their houses are and stuff. But you don't want to see.
But it's showing more than I would want to share. Yeah.
Yes, I don't want to show anybody like the state of this office that I'm sat in right now. It might, some people might think that it's cute that I'm like surrounded by piles of stuff, but it's just not the persona that I want to put in front of my 1,000 or so followers. So I think the persona, a pen name and persona, can be a real benefit because it gives you, it's your shop front, and you wouldn't hang up your washing in your shop, but if it's your house, then you would. That's how my brain has just separated those two things.
Yeah. So I think then, we've kind of been talking about pen name persona as if they're the same thing at the moment, but when you go to your real name, so you're rebranding later this year, putting everything on your real name, putting your real name on covers of your books going forwards.
Yes.
How will you make that author self a persona that is not the dirty washing version of you? Or clean washing, but the washing version of you.
Yeah. I have already been doing it. So when we spoke about our branding guidelines and things, and I came up with my pillars, my posting pillars, I have already, I have been doing this for a long time anyway, but I do tend to kind of forget along the way what I've decided like my rules are. But I have already just started posting my 3 pillars of social media stuff, and I don't particularly think I have to change my persona because, like I say, I have just been myself, or this like online version of myself, for so long. Even when I was like the blogging version of myself, I've always had this invisible line that I just have, like, it just was there automatically. I've never had to worry about sharing too much, and I feel like I don't have to worry about that now. I feel like what I post online and my online persona is like the best part of me. I think it's like the better version of me. I feel like the person I am online is like by far my dream self.
Yeah, I do. I also think to an extent, like, if you are social media savvy, which I think you are, a lot of what you shouldn't be sharing your whole stuff online. If you're we talked about TikTok yesterday, and like if you're doing things like following trends, recording sounds, it can look really personal. You're kind of slightly making a confession about something, you're making a joke about something personal, but it is within a very narrow scope. Like it's within whatever this current trend is. So you might even make a joke about like the washing in your house, like if you had tons of washing up, if that's that week's trend. But it wouldn't be something that you share every week, and it's very much feels like you're part of a collective, a community that makes a certain sort of joke on that. It's not that you would never think, oh, you know what I'm going to do today? Just cry on camera. That isn't in any way something that would.
And
yeah.
And I don't mean I'm not a crier. Well, I am in some ways. Like I do love to cry at TV shows and films.
Obviously,
and
had a lot of conversation about ET, which is dramatic. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And I could just think about stuff and cry, but I'm not somebody who cries to other people. Crying to me is a personal thing that happens in the shower or in front of the TV, and that's it. So sad. But I often have those days where you think like you just want to like vent online, and I think that that's what social media is used for a lot of the time, is like people venting online, and you see people venting and you want to jump on that and you want to vent as well. And it's such like a social media what's the word, it's like kind of social media 101, I would say, is to never get involved in online arguments and never go online and say, oh, I'm having such a bad, I mean, you can if you're on Facebook and it's to your friends and family, but I'm having such a bad day, I don't want to talk about it, but like, why are people the way they are? Everyone sees those people, everyone has those friends or is like adjacent to people who are like that. And I learned a long time ago to never do that. And sometimes I will even type things out and then I'll just delete it. Sometimes it feels great just to type it and then delete it. But I think a lesson for everyone is to never jump on an argument online, no matter how good you think your point is. Just don't do it.
I mean, unless it's in like a secret writers group on Facebook, then obviously absolutely jump in there and
100%. But my personal history is that I used to get into arguments with people on Twitter, on Instagram, and on YouTube, and I would be back and forth with trolls, and it would stress me out, make me so angry, and I'd think to myself, why? I mean, sometimes I did get them to apologise. I'm that good at arguing online. And it always felt great. But I just don't think that it's the right thing to do, and because I learned that lesson, I will never, like, I just know I'll never do it. I'm happy to just.
Yeah. So do you have then like some division of social media? So like, do you say like your Facebook is just for your friends, and it is just for, say you do want to not necessarily rant about something, but like put something on that you wouldn't necessarily want to say to your personal sense? You have some separate online presence?
I do have separate. I have a personal Facebook page which I don't post on other than to share my own stuff. So I'll share from my author page onto my personal page. I also run a bookshop, so I share my bookshop posts onto my personal page, and I just use that to kind of keep up with like friends and family, mostly just like all my older relatives who just like randomly post stuff on Facebook. My Instagram I have got a close friends group on Instagram, and that's mostly, in fact, it is only women. Sorry guys, sorry. But it's just women, and I post more women-friendly content about, like,
I would say it's quite a lot of
period that time stuff. Of the it's that time of the month. It's always period stuff.
Which everyone appreciates.
And I think that it's, for me, that's just like a nice, safe place to talk about women problems and have other people know that I am relatable and anybody can talk to me about anything.
I think I would worry. I think that's a big thing that I appreciate about having a pen name. Is like, I would worry that, I end up with 5,000 followers, and at some point I post a very personal post thinking I've hit my close friends share, and I haven't, and I've shared it to everyone. And I think I like that separation, and it means that I never have to think about that. I never have to worry about posting something overly personal because it's not me. It's this very specific part of me, and I would never consider sharing something under my writing name that is personal. Do you worry about that?
I mean, I think I have in the past posted things, but because I'm really self-centered, once I post something on my something on my stories, I go back and watch it.
Oh, so I think everyone does that. Surely everyone does that.
I know immediately if I've pressed the wrong thing, and then I delete it. I'm like, oh no, I hope no one's seen that. I will just immediately notice that.
What sort of crazy person is not going back to watch just to check? Also, just see like, yeah, that was a good story.
Yeah, like I just want to see myself talking or whatever funny face I've made. Like I find myself very amusing, and yeah, I like look at all my posts. I'm my own biggest fan, but I don't feel bad about posting. Like when I post more women-centric stuff on my close friends, because I write for young adults. I feel like writing female young adult characters gives me like I don't really know how to explain this verbally, but
it's a shame we're on a podcast then.
I know. I feel like it's like a green light to talk about those things, because I don't ever want to not talk about women's problems or just like living as a woman, because I think that young people, like young readers and writers that I've got on my close group, need to know that it's okay to have those conversations. And I do try and put things like that in my books as well, about like what it's like to be like a teenage girl or a young adult living in a world.
How do you know what the divide is between your self and your persona? Because like, if you post about these things to a select group and they sort of apply to the whole group, what's choosing whether something goes out as Sam Cummings author versus Sam Cummings human being?
I know that my Sam Cummings author, my like worldwide account has men in there, and I just sometimes choose that I just don't want to include them in everything, especially because like my boss follows me, and like male colleagues who I work with follow me, and I'm like 100% happy for them to see everything that I post, but I don't think my boss really wants to hear about my period. Like he's never like wanted to talk about it in the past, so
I mean, I never brought it up. That to me also feels like a benefit to having a pen name, in that like we are making a podcast literally about how to try and like quit your job to be a writer, and my boss never brings that up. My boss never brings up like, oh, Matilda, how would you love to quit your job one day to be a writer? Like that, we all maintain the pretense that we love our day jobs and that we would never ever leave. Or maybe you don't.
I think I'm in a very lucky situation. My job is just like, it's such a good job, and my boss is so good. He is an ex-musician. Like one of my colleagues who I work with is a full-time, well, he works with me, but he is like a musician in quite a big band. So there's a big understanding and also encouragement to not look at the job that we have as our day job as the thing that makes us happy. And we all talk openly about our goals and ambitions, and everyone knows that that's what I do, and everyone knows that. I remember when I had my interview for this job, and one of the questions in an interview, which is always the question you get, is, in the next 5 years, where do you see yourself? And I said, writing for a living.
Yeah.
And he was like, great, you're hired. Love the sound of that. Because I was just like, because we love creative people. I mean, I work in a creative industry anyway, so like the idea of being creative, it wasn't a red flag for them to think that I might have other ambitions. A lot of corporate companies wouldn't like that. They'd be like, oh, they're going to leave one day. I don't like, that's not the vibe that we have in our office.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, I definitely like that about my job, and it's quite creative. A lot of people in my work are writers, and I've taken a sabbatical before. I've taken a year off work to write, and I do think I'm going to be coming up to that at some point soon as well. But it does not feel like I'm openly talking about how I can't wait to quit. There's definitely the illusion of the fact that, like, don't we all love working for a living? Isn't that the most fun? Capitalism, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Like, just a veneer of it. Like, definitely my company is not a big, money churner. I work in education, so we're really just constantly, if we've got a bit of extra money, we're like, let's make a book for kids who can't read, and then we'll spend all the money on making that. So there's positives to it, but there's definitely the pen name helps me kind of separate that out. Some people at work, like my pen name is not secret at work, so some people at work will follow me, and I will post on there about writing and things like that. I assume they're not following super regularly. I don't think they listen to the podcast. I don't think they're that interested in the podcast, which they're missing out because it's excellent.
It's the funniest podcast they'll ever hear.
Right? The funniest podcast about self-publishing. Yes. So I think a pen name for me feels like a right decision. I've definitely had, friends who are writers regret it and want to go back, but I think going back is easy-ish. Like, it's easier than going the other way. You cannot really go the other way. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. So
yes.
Yeah, I think it's a good, maybe a chance to reevaluate once you've got a few books out, to start thinking, if I had started with a pen name, do I want to go back from there? If I do realize that maybe the name I've set up hasn't gone correctly, maybe that's something to touch on as well. It's like, some people I know, they'll realize, like, actually I didn't do anything correctly at all. I want to start with a pen name and start again. There's always questions about that in, like, Facebook groups of, I've made a mess. The algorithm doesn't follow me enough. It doesn't boost me enough. Should I start under a pen name and start again? And I always just think, that seems like a lot of work.
Yeah. For me, when I was using a pen name, when I first started, I didn't know anything about it being like the industry and stuff. I didn't really think about posting on social media. It was just, I published some books and just thought that Amazon would do the rest. Like, I was very naive, hadn't investigated it, did it on a whim, because I do everything on a whim. And look at me now. I've come so far.
Just vibes only.
Vibes only. Good vibes. And I hadn't really, I hadn't even nailed the genre that I was writing, right? Because I've got like 2 ongoing series, which are kind of up in the air for what they're doing. So I've got a middle grade and an urban fantasy series. So I just like dipped around and done some different things under this pen name, and now that I've realized, like, it wasn't a mistake, but it was just a very like wishy-washy attempt at writing, making a career. So now I'll be really happy to just like draw a line under that and say, that was baby Sam, but grown-up Sam is now claiming her name and her title and her land, and she's going to dominate it.
So you have got multiple genres. If you decided now, like, I really want to keep 2 very different genres, how do you think you would feel about having a pen name and your real name going at the same time?
I am more than happy to consider that in the future, and I think I have this kind of like wild dream in the back of my head of writing like dark horror kind of things, and that would obviously be under a pen name, but I really want my young adult stuff to be under my name, because young adult is my ultimate passion, is young adult books, and writing that under my actual name feels like that is what that's what I was put on the earth to do. That's how I feel, like that's my calling. And anything else, I would love the idea of creating a pen name and a persona to write a different type of book. Like that sounds really exciting to me.
I can genuinely imagine you, like, the persona looks just like you, but she has like different coloured hair and she wears weird makeup.
Yes, I was thinking like it would be some sort of like Nancy from The Craft, like dark persona.
Oh my goodness, yeah. If ideally you could like float off the ground as well, like with the dress and your legs are dangling down. Yeah.
By the time I do that, the technology will be there.
Yes.
I would be that good amazing at photoshopping. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting topic. Like, I think we've not had like any epiphanies, but I think it is a nice time to like reevaluate
Mm-hmm.
And it gathers together a lot of things to talk about with branding and kind of what belongs under branding and how you decide that. And I think just thinking about what your name is and what it means to you, whether it's a pen name, whether it's your real name, and how that ties into branding can be really helpful reevaluation. Just checking, where am I at? Like, who is Matilda Swift? What does she do? Do I want to still stick with that? Do I want to go with my real name? Like, why have I chosen this? And it's just kind of a nice check in when you're a few books in to think, is this pen name right for me? And am I right for the pen name? Am I doing it correctly? Is the persona correct?
Yeah. Because I would have never, I don't think, before we started doing these meetings, I would have never considered changing that, because I kind of felt like I'd made a decision and I should have stick to it. That's how I feel about a lot of things in life, which is both a blessing and a curse. But I would never have really thought about leaving that behind and making this big change. And it's only since we've been talking about it that I realised, actually, I can do that. So don't be scared to do it.
Okay, so epiphany, but epiphany's been had off screen.
Yes,
just during the process.
Yes, sorry, so epiphany over there.
Previously on our epiphanies.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that is kind of a good wrapping up of like lots of things we've been thinking about in terms of who we are, and we are moving on to a slightly different like wrapping up topic next week.
Yeah, so next week's topic is finishing off this series of rebranding and relaunching, and we'll be talking about relaunching versus rebranding. So a slightly different variation on saying that. What are your thoughts on relaunching and rebranding?
Yeah, so I think this kind of ties into what we talk about today. Just thinking about kind of how you consider old series and like new series and tying things together. I've done a cover rebrand last year. I didn't make enough of it, and I think I've learned some things from that and learned some things about how I would do it. And it also maybe can kind of consider what my brand is. And then we're thinking about, if you're looking at doing a new pen name, you're sort of relaunching things, or not a new pen name, but a different name on the covers. Sort of think about relaunching things. So I think it is a good time for us to evaluate like how we represent books to the world, or present books to the world and ourselves to the world, and kind of come together in that. I'm also definitely thinking about it in terms of my new series coming up and how I even just rethink the branding and launching of that. I don't necessarily have great ideas for it right now because I'm still pondering. But yeah, what about you? Have you thought about anything to do with it?
My relaunching and rebranding is coming, so I am imminently doing these things. I haven't put it in a diary yet because I don't know. And I'll talk about this next week. I don't know what the best time to do it is, so that is something that I'll talk about. But yeah, definitely like doing all of my branding, guideliney things, and thinking about who I want to be presenting myself as in my books as. This is like 100% where I'm at right now. So my only thought is a big job, and I'm excited to try and think of all the things that it covers, because it is like covers any kind of thing, like websites, previous books that are already out, things like inserts and all this stuff. Like there's so much to think about, and this week's going to be
but it's a good time to do it because it's the last. This will be the last episode before we do a Q1 review, because we will be having been in publishing or podcasting land for the first quarter of the year. So we're kind of wrapping up a couple of episodes that hopefully should tie everything together and kind of give us our last thoughts on this topic. And then at the end of this month, we'll be doing an episode, will come out at the start of next month, I think, that's just kind of trying to recap everything that we've started thinking about. And then we have planned our next series of episodes as well. So it is all looking exciting. One thing we talked about this week when we were meeting was trying to build our listenership. So we were looking at the numbers. It is steadily growing each week, which is fantastic. But I'm just going to take this week's end of episode just to say, if you can do one thing this week, it would be write a friend about this podcast. I know there's the whole like, review and subscribe thing. I'm not sure I know how that works, and I don't think I have ever reviewed a single podcast. email list a lot. I just tell a lot of people. I'm a real podcast pusher. I'm constantly about podcasts. So
I'm hitting 5 stars on the podcasts I listen to.
I don't even know where that would go. So whichever
yes,
whichever thing
wherever
you do,
you listen,
review it if you know how to do that. But also tell everyone that you know, but at least one person, that you know about the podcast. As my podcast pushing self is going, I'm also going to recommend another podcast, which is one that I started listening to this week, which is Publishing Rodeo, which is like this podcast, but for traditional publishers. It's got a pair of hosts who are partway through their publishing journey. They've had really different experiences. The podcast is fantastic. It is a great listen, and kind of they look at things the same way that we do, looking at it from kind of behind the scenes, the mechanics of things. If you are thinking at all about doing traditional publishing, it is a great podcast to listen to. And I'm, I think 4 or 5 episodes in now. I've been binging of, I think they've got about 30 so far. Give that a listen. I will put a link in the show notes. But that is my podcast recommendation. If in return you can recommend this to everybody you know. Yeah, I've built up from one. Everyone that you know, whether they like publishing or not, they might want to self-publish
everyone
one day.
that you know.
Get a skywriter out there, like paint the side of your house. Pen to Paycheck on this podcast, get recommending it. We'll be back next week, and thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye. You've been listening to Pen to Paycheck Authors.
Stay tuned for our next episode, and don't forget to subscribe to learn how to write your way to financial success.